Today is Tuesday, November 5th, and the time is 2 p.m. I'd like to call this meeting to order. And Mr. Clerk, can you please read the roll?
Ms. Ford.
Here.
Mr. Ligon.
Present.
Mr. Kern.
Here.
Mr. Onishi.
Present.
Ms. Poindexter.
Here.
Ms. Willie.
Present.
Chair Eoff.
Here.
Chair Eoff, there are 7 members present and 2 excused.
Thank you. Just for the audience, the Chair Yoshimoto is in transit, and Mr. Kanuha is also in transit and will be in Kona, joining us by video conference in about 10 minutes. Ms. Poindexter, would you lead us in the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to remind everybody to please turn off your cell phones and pagers or turn them to silent mode.
Madam Chair, are you going to set like a time limit to what I'm going to end of testimony for today?
Thank you. At this time, we don't have an end time. I'm hoping that we can finish public testimony today, but it does state on the agenda that public testimony today is limited to 2 minutes, and we will urge everybody to please try and summarize before you get to the 2 minutes so we don't have to cut you off. And if possible, be as concise as possible. We've heard a lot of testimony and we do want to get through this today and through the public testimony as soon as, before it gets too late today. And there's another thing I'd like to remind you of. We do have a council rule that allows for one person to represent several, and so you can designate a point person who can read the names of those that they're testifying for, and that way we can also save time.
So you're not gonna be setting a time?
I don't have an end time for the meeting.
You don't have an end time,
today,
so you're
tonight.
gonna just continue taking all testimony?
My plan was to see where we're at in a few hours, and I'd like to, at that time, take a short recess and discuss it among ourselves how we'd like to continue.
Okay, because you got my letter.
I'm sorry.
I have a community meeting tonight at 6:30.
You have to leave at 6:30?
My community meeting is at 6:30, so I'll be leaving like about 6, a little after 6.
Okay, you have to leave at 6, and Mr. Kanuha has to be somewhere at 6 as well, but would attend that meeting and then come back, he said.
Okay. Can we discuss that portion as we get closer?
Yeah.
No, I'm just seeing what the plan was. Okay, thank you.
And then I have one more clarification point. You said that several people can come up, one person can come up and represent several people. And just to make it clear that it's just basically 2 minutes. If they're representing 4 people, they don't get 8 minutes.
Thank you for clarifying. That's true.
Thank you.
Ms. Willie?
Yeah, can you just clarify that if they're reading names of people who aren't here, that goes against their time. But if there are people that they're representing who are here, they can stand up and they can refer to their name and where they're from, and it won't go against their 2-minute time. So because you all get up as a group, don't think that that's cutting back on your amount of time.
Okay, so what Ms. Willie is stating is that if there are several members that would like to stand and be recognized, we won't start the testimony time until we've identified the people that are being represented, if they're all here, and then we'll start the time when the person starts to speak. Correct? Okay. Okay, thank you. Council members, is it all right if I proceed with statements from the public? Okay. I guess just so we can get an idea of how many people are going to testify. So far, we have approximately 9 or 10 here in Hilo. How many do we have in Kona?
Madam Chair, we have 7 in Kona.
Okay. And Waimea?
Madam Chair, we have 5 at this time.
Thank you. Kohala?
Good afternoon, Chair. We currently have 13 testifiers.
Thank you. Pahoa, do you have testifiers?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. We have 15 testifiers here in Pahoa.
Okay, thank you. And Ka'u?
Good evening, Madam Chair. We have one testifier here in Ka'u.
Okay, we could not hear 14.
Ka'u, can you say that again? Or speaking to the mic?
We have one testifier here in Ka'u.
Okay, that's one testifier. Okay, thank you. I'll start here in Hilo, and we'll just go rotation. I'll take two at a time from each site. So my first two testifiers here in Hilo can please come forward. Dr. Kim Kozuma and Nomi Carmona. You can go ahead.
Okay. Aloha County Council members. I've listened to the reasons for passing this bill prior to forming a committee, and I'm shocked by it. If passed, this council is putting more weight on junk science presented by the slick, well-funded anti-GMO activist movement, citing the precautionary principle.
Excuse me. Could you state your name for the record? I'm sorry.
I apologize. I'm Dr. Kim Kozuma.
Go ahead.
Okay. Does this council feel comfortable in passing a law which will have devastating economic effects despite the scientific research community repeatedly stating studies have not detected any hazards connected with the use of GE crops? For the people who still choose to believe the anti-GMO claims, examine their sources. The precautionary principle has a corollary. What damage are we doing by passing this law? Think about it. Do the risks outweigh the known devastation to an entire industry responsible for over $500 million in ag income, or the public, which will bear a 20% increased food cost, and the cost to the county, including defending itself in multiple lawsuits? Equally repulsive, this special interest bill caters to the 2% of our farming community, producing only $7.4 million of our state ag income. Bill 113 will hurt over 4,600 farms that put food on our tables in favor of 93 certified organic farms. Bill 113 discriminates by selectively mandating registration and charges an exorbitant amount for the privilege to do so. This bill inflicts draconian penalties in gross excess of other penalties across the state. Is it fair that only the GM farmers have to register and pay fees? Think about it. If the niche segment of organic farmers feels threatened by GM, then they must bear the burden of growing their crops in a greenhouse. USDA puts the burden of mitigation onto the certified organic farmers, not the majority of conventional farmers feeding everyone else. This county bill gives special privilege to a small select group in direct opposition to federal law. We can and must respectfully coexist to survive. Either kill Bill 113 outright or form a task force first, use science, not political activism and fear to pass laws. Thank you.
Thank you. And excuse me, I'm just going to check with our timer. Was the first signal 30 seconds?
I didn't hear anything.
Okay, so the only signal they're going to hear is when 3 minutes are up?
2 minutes.
I mean 2 minutes.
You'll see the yellow light there after 30 seconds.
Well, I can't see the light from,
Okay.
Sorry.
So if you watch, you'll see a yellow light. That means there's 30 seconds left, and then the sound means your time is up.
Thank you.
Okay, you go ahead.
Aloha, Hawaii County Council. Thank you for having me. My name is Nomi Carmona. I'm the president of a statewide political nonprofit called Babes Against Biotech. I'm here representing 12,000 members. And unfortunately, we're not incredibly well funded, as some would like to believe. We are a nonprofit. So we work extremely hard to get the word out. And I'm here to ask for your support for Bill 113. I'd like to bring up a couple things I think are really important. There was just a major study released by Harvard and Johns Hopkins, a number of other international universities saying that whole genes can transfer from diet to blood, to the point where they found one fellow who was eating as a vegetarian had more plant DNA than human DNA in his blood. So we do need to think about what we're consuming and what we're promoting. And if you look at what's happening on the other islands that have the GMO experimentation, the devastation is huge. In Kauai, there is 10 times the national average rate of gastroenterosis, which is where the baby's intestines grow outside of the body and may be linked to atrazine. testing. So right now we're fighting just to find out what's happening, what's being sprayed on us, and what they're experimenting with on other islands, and you don't want to be in that position. So I'm asking you to please protect yourself. You're the last major island without this open air experimentation, and I can say firsthand it has devastated other communities in other islands. I'd also like to bring up over $520,000 of GMO chemical company money into the funds of our state legislators. If you delay, I do believe they'll try something again, like SB 727, to strike the county rights to protect its citizens' life and health, which actually made it through the Senate last year. So time is absolutely of the essence, and as the largest queen bee exporter in the world, we need to be very careful and monitor those pesticides which are related heavily with GMO use, so that we can continue to do that and provide pollination for our crops. This is an invasive species, as I've made clear to you before, and this is the endangered species capital of the world. So please exercise your home rule. I am so blessed and honored to know this council, and please pass this bill on behalf of all future generations. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go to Kona. Your first two testifiers, please.
Okay, our first two testifiers today, Julie and Douglas Rideout, in support of Bill 113. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Douglas Rideout. I've been a resident of the Big Island for 40 years. I have 11 grandchildren here. I go to great lengths to avoid GMO food products because I've read the studies of what they can cause that were not funded by the biotech industry and Monsanto in particular. I'd like to cite one recent study, which was the first study ever to examine the long-term or lifetime effects of GMO products on laboratory animals. It seems astounding that this was the first test ever done, and that the FDA and the U.S. government approved them without any lifetime studies of what they cause. Here are some of the shocking findings from the study. This was, by the way, done at the University of Caen. Up to 50% of the males and 70% of the females suffered premature death. Rats that drank trace amounts of Roundup at levels legally available in our water supply had 200 to 300% increase in large tumors. Rats fed GMO corn and traces of Roundup suffered severe organ damage, including liver damage and kidney damage. The study fed these rats NK603, the Monsanto variety of GM corn that's grown across North America and fed widely to animals and humans. This is the same corn that your corn-based breakfast cereals, and tortillas, and snacks are made of. This was the first long-term animal feeding trial and resulted in serious impact feeding GM corn and the herbicide Roundup in a combination of both that resulted in extremely serious. In male rats, there was liver and kidney disorder, including tumors. Even more worrying were the female rats, where the mammary tumors were at a level that is extremely concerning. Up to 80% of the female rats had mammary tumors by the end of the trial. I would like to think that you can look back, if any of you vote to stop this bill and somebody in your family gets breast cancer in the future, you may not feel good about that anyway. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead. My name is Julie Rideout, and one of the things I would like to add is that they often say that GMO crops are bigger yields. This is not true. In India, an organic rice farmer was able to produce 22.4 tons of rice on a small 2.5-acre parcel. Traditional methods often give much greater yields than the GMO products, which are now having major problems with corn borers and superweeds that they are unable to control, even with all the major chemicals that they put on the crops. The pesticides just alone are very toxic, very poisonous, and the GMO crops are designed to use with larger and larger amounts of pesticides. As my husband pointed out, the studies showed that internal organ damage is one of the first problems caused after eating GMO foods. kidney damage, liver damage. In Hilo, someone pointed out the gastroenterology problems with intestines, and all these things happened after the GMO crops were prevalent and growing everywhere all around. Hawaii is a unique environment. We need to protect it from being just one of the parts of the country that's just like every place else. We have a lot of specialized food products, specialized animals, and if those things are not protected, they will disappear, they will be damaged, and then where will our tourism business go? Because we have nothing unique left to show people or offer people. I personally avoid GMO products. I avoid them for my family, and I will continue to avoid GMOs and buy organic. And I just would like to make it clear that GMOs may be considered the wave of the future. If that's the case, it'll be here in 20 years. But we will have a chance to make certain that what we do plant is safe for people to eat. And I'm done.
Thank you very much. I'd like to go to Waimea next.
I'd like to introduce Edie Bikle and Carrie Wynn. They represent themselves. Go ahead, introduce yourself.
Aloha, my name is Edie Bikle, and I have testified several times regarding this GMO issue, and I am in favor of Bill 113. Instead of repeating all of the things I and so many others have said, I would like to ask you to consider the following. We live on a big, and for the most part, pure island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Can we please be responsible citizens of planet Earth and keep it that way? There is a reason many countries have banned GMO. Not enough research has been done. It seems a lot more pesticide spraying goes along with these crops. Take a look at Kauai and the serious consequences the people are facing. Poison dirt is blowing everywhere and entering the streams and ocean. I believe in organic farming methods. Our big island could be a shining example of a community saying no to big ag corporations. We then need to create jobs and self-reliance by starting our own seed companies. Pure organic seeds will be in huge demand as GMO crops continue to pollinate and pollute other farmlands. Our county council has the unique opportunity to just say no to GMO. Thank you.
Carrie.
Aloha. My committee and I favor the complete eradication and ban of GMOs, but we'll settle for Bill 113 for now. And I think that all the data and the studies and the scientific research has already been presented ad nauseum as to the hazards of GMOs and what the chemicals that are associated with it are doing to our land or water and our air. And so I won't go into details about that, but I would also like to remind all our public servants from the bottom up, from the council to the mayor to the governor and beyond, of your oath to the Constitution. And I'd like to also remind the people that have elected these representatives to voice our concerns, to learn about the Constitution, because if we don't know our rights, then we don't have any. So it is vital that people look at the Constitution and how we could utilize it to retain our freedom. Thank you.
Thank you. First two testifiers.
Okay, Landry and Anna.
You're going?
Sure.
Kohala.
Good afternoon, Chair. Our first testifier is Kealoha Sugiyama, representing himself, speaking in support of Bill Number 113, Draft 3, GMO.
Go ahead.
Aloha. I am Kealoha Sugiyama, and I'm here to ask you all to vote yes on Bill 113. First, I want to awaken you from the many testimonies which might have put you in a daze. This vote resonates all the testifier voices in favor of Bill 113 and asking for your yes vote. And to remind you, the purpose and intent of Bill 113. Voting yes on Bill 113 simply means you are taking responsibility for the health and welfare of the people of the County of Hawaii, and also taking responsibility for clean air, drinkable water, the aina for sustainability, and the sea for its abundant supply. Businesses with the likes of Monsanto that are soliciting your support comes only with their profit and loss statement and not with life-sustaining features. In case you can't see your way clear on this Bill 113, I have flashlights for all of you to see your way clear on Uamau Ke'o Kaine Kapono. The life of the land and its people are in your hands. The second flashlight is for council members that continue to sit on the Kanalua fence. And the third, who still don't know that this bill is not about the papaya farmers and all the exemptions. Mahalo.
Our next testifier in Kohala is Maureen Combs, representing herself, speaking in support of Bill number 113.
Aloha. My name is Maureen Combs, and Kealoha is a very hard act to follow. But I will try to just state clearly, I would like you to support Bill 113. I have testified before with statistics. I don't want to do that again. I want to bring up my history in clinical research on the mainland. This is where I made my money, in clinical research for medical devices. And I'm very familiar with the concept of substantial equivalence, which is how the biotech industries got their farm crops passed through the FDA early on in 1992, before there was very much science. And substantial equivalence basically says, hey, you know, we think it's pretty much the same as what's already out there, depending on what you test. They're not testing what we know they should be testing now. They tested way back. Does it have the same amount of vitamins, minerals? Is it pretty much the same? Well, on those standards, sure. But now we know. Now we're seeing the damage. It's been a while, and then we see what's happening. So we need to change the rules, and we need to not let them play their game now with those old rules, because we know those old rules aren't significant. They're not what we have to have them stand up for. They have to pass a higher standard. So please, support 113. Do not allow this island to be a testing zone. Make them prove their safety first before they come in and potentially destroy this land for who knows how long we'd ever get it back. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now I'm going to check with Pahoa for your first two testifiers, please.
First, we have Mr. Jon Olson representing himself. Following him will be Mr. Dave Kaiser, also representing himself, both in support of Bill 113.
Yes, Madam Chairman, members of the council, thank you. I'm here in support of this bill, but I do have concerns in the modifications that have been made to the bill. And at this reading, many of the more significant controls that I had hoped would have remained in place have been removed. And it doesn't quite address my personal concern. I'm not here to argue the science. I'm here simply because I believe I have a right to know what will impact me and my property, and what is in my food. And we're dealing with corporations and people who are denying me my rights to that information. I tend to believe that keeping it on your side of the fence makes good neighbors. These people are not in the business of keeping it on their side of the fence. Having been around a while, I remember when lead in your water pipes and in your gasoline was fine. I remember when DDT was not a problem, speaking of junk science. You know, this is a litany. Atomic power is for everybody. Now it's leaking like crazy. This is just another large corporation that has little concern for us out here in the middle of the Pacific. I would hope you would put those things back in that were taken out that control this organization and its representatives. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
My name is Kaiser. I'm supporting it. I'm a little bit reticent about, let's see, there's one part here that says an emergency exemption. The development of when you got a non-genetically engineered crop or plant, and they said they'd accept, somehow somebody believes they would go crying for a genetically modified solution. I don't know of a single organic farmer on this island, or for that matter, just about anywhere else, who would want one. What I figure is the only ones who would want anything like that would be some genetically modified people who would want to take one of our plants that isn't genetically modified and try to work its way into their plant. That's just the way I see some of the way the mind's working. I guess you almost have to think like the enemy sometimes. But on another slightly lighter vein, I'm reminded of that little experiment somebody did somewhere. They took some GMO corn, manure corn, and a non-GMO corn, and they placed them up outside in a place where the squirrels could get them. And the squirrels came up and they found them. They took a bite out of the GMO corn, and then they went and then they took a bite out of the non-GMO, and they picked that non-GMO corn clean. They knew exactly what they were eating. They didn't have to, they didn't need a label like we do, but they could tell. They know. And I also don't want my cat eating any GMO stuff either, so I might have to find another source, because once they get salmon in the pipeline, he's going to have to find another one. Okay, well, my 30 seconds are up, so I mean, my 30-second sign just came up, and I haven't got anything else to blather about, so I might as well relinquish my chair. Eddie.
Thank you. Ka'u, would you like to introduce your first testifier?
Yes. We have Renee Dufoix representing Self and Food Ingredient and Health Research Institute in support of Bill number 113, Draft 3.
Dear council members, thank you for your kind attention. It is clear there are many misconceptions about the risk assessment process that products made from GMO undergo. I have testified on several occasions on the bill before you. As a former FDA public health official, I have unique knowledge of the system in place to assess risk and regulate food safety in the United States. My expertise is toxicology. With respect to risk assessment of chemicals, including pesticides and GMO, as human beings, we simply do not have an effective risk assessment process to determine the cumulative impact of multiple daily exposures to chemicals, including pesticides applied to GMO crops. While spending many years working at the FDA, I learned a lot about the American food supply. I learned many food ingredients enter the market without testing on human beings, including products made from GMO. I learned the current risk assessment system does not work. Manufacturers pay the FDA millions of dollars in user and application fees to get a new drug, pesticide, or food ingredient on the market. Congressional mandates require these same fees pay the salaries of FDA employees. Monsanto and big business essentially pay the salaries of many FDA employees. The fox now owns the hen house. FDA regulates pesticides in the form of GMO and used on food packaging. Yet manufacturers are responsible for conducting the risk assessment on the product or substance for which they are trying to gain FDA control. There is no human clinical trial data for most of the products in our market, including those made from GMO. I urge you to pass this bill and set up an ad hoc committee to investigate the safety of GMO. I urge you to ask Monsanto and the other biotech companies to provide the human trial data showing these GMO products are safe. I am here to tell you there is no such data. Corn sweeteners in the U.S. are derived from GMO corn. We just finished our most recent human clinical trial in which half the participants eliminated GMO corn sweeteners from their diet. Our manuscript will soon be published and shock the world. I strongly suggest that you pass this bill. You have everything to gain. You will keep your current seats, elected seats. The European community was right to take a precautionary approach on GMO, and so should you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ka'u, if you do have any other testifiers, can you just kind of interrupt us and let me know?
Yes, I will.
Okay, otherwise I won't check with you again. I'm going to leave you out of the rotation.
Okay.
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 Here in Hilo, our next two testifiers.